There are 34 days left until the presidential election, and misinformation is already thriving on social media platforms. Just hours before last night's debate, several conspiracy theories targeted former Vice President Joe Biden, including one that said he would wear an electronic device in his ear. That was false. That was baseless speculation that was then shared by numerous conservative news outlets and the Trump campaign. So for more on how this could affect the highly anticipated contest, we're joined by CNET senior producer Dan Patterson. All right, Dan, let's just get into what you're seeing online, the reaction to last night's debate. What are the trends?
Yeah, so, Vlad, I'm glad you mentioned that baseless conspiracy about Biden allegedly wearing an earpiece. That was the #1 trend that was pushed by what appeared to be inauthentic accounts. We say appeared to be because we use some data tools to look at how fast these trends start to hit the internet. There's also a trend that happened around the same time with large velocity and scale about alleging that Biden was involved in poisoning a Ukrainian diplomat or a Ukrainian official. This was pushed by QAnon accounts. So we also look at that moment that President Trump mentioned the extremist group Proud Boys. Almost instantly, Twitter exploded with over 200,000 posts talking about the Proud Boys. We saw concurrent activity on a far-right social network called Parler, where some of the posts were appeared to be violent or appeared to have fairly subtle calls to arms. So the big trends of what people were talking about, well, it was these explicit moments. And we see a lot of coordinated, inauthentic activity pushing these trends.
You know, we've got this pandemic that we are still dealing with, the restrictions. Many people are getting a lot of their information on social media. They're spending a lot more time on the internet and on social media than they may have before. Can we talk a little bit about the possible impact of all of this misleading misinformation, that the impact it could have on the election?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, that's kind of the million-dollar question right now. So conspiracy theories have been a defining characteristic of this campaign and even this president, and we see that he does use his Twitter account to amplify conspiracy accounts or those associated with conspiracy accounts. We also know from the Mueller report and from other sources that one of Russia's goals in 2016 was to undermine the faith and confidence that Americans have in the tools, the instruments of democracy, this process we're going through right now. So the best case scenario for social media is that technology is used to educate and connect American voters. That's idealistic, best case. The worst case scenario is that social media is weaponized and it's used as a propaganda tool to denigrate these instruments of democracy. And we are also seeing social media used as a weapon and as a tool to elevate some of these extremist groups that have been, at least historically, involved in very violent action.
Dan, what are you seeing online with regards to Proud Boys, to white supremacist groups? The language that the president used specifically, not only did he refuse to condemn white supremacy, but at one point he was asked about the Proud Boys and he told him to stand by. What are you hearing about those words? Are there hashtags developing? I'm just trying to get a sense of if they...
And Vlad.
Yeah.
Can I just elaborate on that? You know, after he said stand by, he said, but something's got to be done about Antifa. And certainly with some of the tweets and stuff that I've seen, it was interpreted by people who say they're part of the Proud Boys as, you know, a call to action. That's what I want to get. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it was considered a call to action. And what you're talking about there is this case of, or it's a tactic that is called whataboutism, where you have one group that is factually involved in violent threats, violent actions, and you use a, well, what about this group to kind of minimize or marginalize the violent actions of one group. So what we are seeing is whataboutism happening on social media. We have also seen this explosion of hashtags related to the Proud Boys. Some of these hashtags appear to be inauthentic. I say appear to be because we really can't prove it, but they have all the hallmarks of inauthentic activity. And we see absolutely authentic activity happening on Twitter, as well as the social networks Parler and Gab. These are known for harboring fairly extreme views. They wrap this in free speech, but much of the activity, especially in some of the images that we saw shared on Parler last night and into this morning, featured weapons and calls to or what appears to be a call to action. We see them talking with police officers in very friendly ways, kind of implying that they are in league with the police. We don't know that that is true, but that is the implication of some of these posts. We see pictures of weapons being shared, and we see this hashtag stand by shared over and over and over. The implication is that by stand by, some sort of action comes from that. So, Vlad, to answer your question, we saw an explosion of words mentioning the Proud Boys and their related actions all across the social web.
So, Dan, before we let you go, very quickly, you mentioned some inauthentic, some authentic. In 2016, the concern was inauthentic. Russians, others, North Koreans, spreading misinformation, and that was verified by our intelligence community. I'm just curious, this time around, percentage-wise, when it comes to outside actors, which one's more of a concern, domestic misinformation or outside actors?
Both are a tremendous concern. However, the biggest concern when I talk to people in the security community is this blend of inauthentic activity pushed by foreign actors who perhaps have political goals, not just Russia, but many of our adversaries. And we see them exploiting some of the things, the fissures that exist in American society and manifest themselves on social media. So the biggest concern, I think, when I talk to law enforcement is that there will be some domestic unrest that includes violence. But the particulars on where this originates, whether it is outside of the United States or inside the United States, are really hard to figure out right now. We're kind of in the process of looking at the data across social media, but we probably won't have satisfying answers for quite a while.
All right, Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you.